Everywhere we went in Thunder Bay, we heard stories from First Nations people about how they are treated by police. Late last month, we hosted a meeting, invited people to share their experiences.
Gillian.
Many told us they were afraid to come. For some, it was the first time they'd ever spoken about what happened publicly. So I wondered if I could just start by asking you, how many people here have had some kind of interaction with the police in this city in which you felt that racism played a role? Right.
Hello, my name is Harley Lagarde Beecham. I'm from Fort William First Nation, born and raised here in Thunder Bay. I was at a house party with some friends, and stuff got kind of wild between a different group of people, and the cops all came in, and it was wintertime. So, I wanted to get my jacket before we left. I was hoping that there'd be no interaction with the cops, because I really didn't want to just be a part of it. So I went to the basement to go grab my jacket, and I couldn't find it. And the cops came down and thought that I was, trying to hide or something, and I was just trying to grab my jacket. They were acting agitated towards me, like as if I was trying to, just cause a disturbance. So I got dragged up the stairs, and then at the top of the landing, there's the outside door, and I was brought outside, laid down on the cold cement, and it was snowing lightly. I still remember that, and I just remember feeling like a knee on my neck, and had my arms behind my back, and I was telling them, like, no, I'm not resisting, I'm not trying to be a nuisance or anything. So we start walking, and that's when it kind of like got to me, and tried looking at the car number, and that's when a cop walked right up to me really fast and slammed me on the car, and then they took me in.
They arrested you?
Yeah, and then I went into the jail for the night.
My name is Anna Betty Achnibanashkam, and I'm the Deputy Grand Chief of Anishinaabe Nation. Some years ago, there was two young boys who were students, and they were walking home, and this happened here in the city, and they were attacked physically by a group. There was 4 non-Indigenous men that attacked them, and these young boys, they were about 15 and 17. And the younger one started getting beaten pretty bad. And of course, the older brother, he wanted to protect his little brother. And he had every right to. Like, I would do the same thing if I saw someone getting beaten by 4 individuals. And there was a knife that became involved, and he slashed one of the men, so that they could stop beating on his brother. And unfortunately, when the police came, it was these 2 young Indigenous boys that were the only ones that got taken into custody. And so when they went through the court system, there was no talk of that this was provoked, that they were defending themselves. So when these things happen, then it's saying to us that our rights are not as the same rights as any other individual in this country.
My name is Kathy. I used to live here in Thunder Bay I moved here in 2003 from northwestern Ontario, a little west of here. I moved here with my 2 children to attend university and finish my degree. There was this one time in particular, which is why I have a criminal record today, and it has to do with Thunder Bay Police. We were at a bar, which is uptown on Port Arthur side, and it was bar time closing, right? We were standing there waiting for a cab, and I was with a couple of friends, my boyfriend at the time, and there was a Aboriginal man standing more intoxicated than, we didn't know what he was doing, but he wasn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. But the police were harassing him, they were picking on him, bullying him, and I took notice of that, and I made a verbal comment to them, like, he's not doing anything, leave him alone. It instinctively turned on me. And when I defended myself or spoke back, or I was being hauled in, I was arrested right there, put in handcuffs, thrown up against the back of the car and taken in. There was racial slurs the whole ride, right? Like, you should have stayed on the res, squaw, you're not going to finish school, you're not going to mount anything.
So today, when you walk down the street in this city, do you fear the police like you?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Hi, my name is Tricia. I've been really fortunate that I haven't personally experienced that kind of racism, but and I have 2 boys. I've lived in Thunder Bay for about 22 years, and I've tried to raise my kids to turn the other cheek, not to take it to heart, that isn't their issue, that it's the person's issue.
Do you worry about your children when they go out?
Every night, every time they leave the house, I do worry about their safety. I've gone as far as telling my children, don't admit where you're from.
And if they were to get into trouble, do you trust the police here to protect them, to defend them, to come to their aid if they need it?
No. No.
My name is Bob McKeown. I'm the Executive Director of Northern Anishinaabe Education Council, and I sat through the inquest for 10 months, and I testified 4 times during this inquest, and I listened to numerous stories of former students and even current students of the way they were treated. I listened to stories from the families of those students that were pulled from the river. I listened to stories from how, when the students were missing, how the police did not take it seriously right away. And to sit there and listen to the countless stories of the way our people are mistreated. Our students come from the far north communities, and they have to leave their communities for an education. And as the Education Council who looks after these students, we do try to tell our students to be safe, to never leave one another, not to take what's happening to personal, just like what people are saying here. But to hear a student take the stand and tell a story of how she was coming out of the movie theater, and as she was coming out of the movie theater, she met up with some of her friends at the bus stop. One of her friends was intoxicated, and police were called. Her friend went out into the street, and she fell down, and this other student was going to help her. She wasn't drinking with her, she just came out of the movies. The police were called, police picked them up, and they were both put in the back of the police car. They both happened to live at the same boarding home. As they were being transported back to their boarding home from the police, she tells a story that the police officer would be driving and step on the gas and then slam on the brakes, and the girls would go flying against that plexiglass. And then he would speed up again, slam on the brakes, and this happened numerous times. By the time they reached their boarding home, one of the girls had marks on her cheek. The other girl was scraped on her knees from kept falling. So while I'm sitting listening to this story, I'm getting an email from my staff of a similar story that just happened just while I've been in the courtroom at the inquest. A very similar story where she was picked up by the police, and the same thing. The police officer was driving the vehicle, slammed the brakes, and this young student kept hitting that plexiglass. While on this one, they cracked her tooth, cut her lip. And that one we have it's an investigation, and there's a complaint that we're dealing with this one. And that one just happened this past school year.
Do you get the impression that things are in any way getting better? I think there's a sense that maybe things are starting to improve. And I'm just wondering, do you see that here?
No. The stories are starting to come out now because of different things that the
the Truth and Reconciliation, with the inquest, with the different stories in the media that have been sharing stories. Yes, things are starting to come out, things are starting to be talked about. But we have a long way to go. There's a lot of change that needs to happen.
A couple of stories I heard. One of them was, these stories are the same. For example, a couple people wanted to come here and share their story. But because of one being back up north, he said that he was afraid to come back because the cops told him that if he was to share or speak out and get help, anything like that they would find him and fight him again, hurt him.
Why do you think it happens, though?
Well, it's, first of all, it is systemic racism and stereotype, and for some reason, we First Nations stand out the most above all other races that are here in the city or even right across this country. One of the things that I would say is, if you're going to arrest a First Nation or Indigenous person here in the city of Thunder Bay, arrest them without having to punish them and hurt them and beat them up and all these things.
Wabagunikwe Indigenous Makwa Nadorem Bingwe Neashi Nishnabek Nindonjiba. I'm a First Nation woman. I'm an Ojibwe woman from the area, and this is my community. I'm also the executive director of the Ontario Native Women's Association. A few months ago, I don't know if the media had already left, we did a vigil here in town to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I watched the Chief of Police do a very heartfelt thank you to the Indigenous people of Thunder Bay. There wasn't, unfortunately, it was towards the end of the day and quite a few people had left, but I had witnessed it. And so to me that was huge, that he publicly came out and acknowledged and participated and thanked the Indigenous people for leading the way and to support us on that journey. To me that was a huge first step in the right direction towards reconciliation with the community. And I do believe I've had a couple of discussions with him since then on looking at what we need to do as a community to work together to create this hope for our children and for our community and to stop the divide in our community.